Welcome to this video that treats Sintashta, their strategic location in Russia south of the Ural Mountains. I give more details about them because they are a kind of industrial producers of sophisticated carts and wheels, similar to the ones used in Malta in relation to the cart ruts. Their strategic location protects them by a river that almost encircles them and also provides abundant water and food for them and their herds, animals, and that perhaps was navigable. From that location they receive mass harvested or traded animals, herds and fresh hybrid humans through the Arctic route and upriver and tributaries, have access to diversified resources from the Ural Mountains and arid regions in Kazakhstan, attack or trade via the Ural River to the Caspian Sea and Caucasus. So this is their location of the Sintashta. They are close to the Ural Mountains. Here's Nova Zembla. That's somehow a connection with the Ural Mountains. They are connected with the Caspian Sea by the Ural River. On the other sides you have important waters as well, also going to the Caspian Sea, and from Nova Zembla they have access through the upriver and tributaries to their location. The tributary goes right here, probably further, and via this river they have of course access to Altai, which is important in migrations and in entries for humans and hybrids. So far about their location. The square here indicates southern Trans-Ural region, and B, this is B, shows a map of the fortified Sintashta settlements. There are several, from 1 to 21. There's a few here, but there's a larger number of Sintashta settlements. And then C is a combined illustration of a Kameni Ambar settlement. I further don't know what it is, but it seems extensive, and I suppose it has to do with Sintashta as well. I think it's one of the settlements. Kameni, it's probably here in the list. I cannot see it right away. Could be something similar. Again, Ural, it's another map. And Sintashta is here. And this is probably a tributary of the upriver. And this is the Ural River going to the Caspian Sea. This is more or less the Arctic. This is Greenland, this is North America, Alaska. So normally the humans, the hybrids, arrive through the Mackenzie River and then cross here because they have reference of land and mountains. And here Greenland they have to cross on the ice and until Nova Zembla and then enter the upriver. This is the upriver we are talking about and can go all the way via Ural until the Sintashta location, which should be more or less here, with this being Kazakhstan, Sintashta location. So this is probably the ice extension in a modern time winter. I don't go into detail, but this is one of their favorite Mackenzie River following the land masses until Greenland, crossing, hopping from islands. This is another island, it's not so visible, Nova Zembla, going in the up or the Yenisei River to Altai or to the Sintashta location. So these Sintashta, but there are others before, are able to make spoked wheeled war chariots, and quite certainly they did it in the Americas already, or they learned it there. The men, Sintashta men, were buried as warriors with their weapons separated from and in the other direction to make the difference than women. The leaders probably had more than one woman or wife mothering their offspring, at least the important man or the leaders. Those people were very focused on war and warfare, apart from breeding and domesticating, and at least to some point murdering. I'm not speaking about the Sintashta once they are installed, but when they come from the Americas and do this movement in mass, this is one of the routes where they invade and turn over Eurasia. So all this is Eurasia, this is Beringia, so this is the north coast, the Arctic coast of Russia, and here all the way up to Scandinavia. So I'm talking about their history before they settled in their settlements, in their fortified settlements. They were warriors in the first place, and in order to turn over, to invade, to conquer Eurasia, at least at some point they were murdering mainly the men, but most probably children too. Kind of a genocide and plundering. In some cases they, let's say, they don't murder the women, and in fact they plunder from the people, the populations, the groups that were there. So Sintashta is one of them, and they provide, Sintashta provide to other hybrids similar to them. They execute deforestation and plowing, tilling of the soils, because that's the basis of their feeding, possibly more agriculturists than the groups before. To feed their glucose-based brains, and their children and their self have more carbohydrate-based diets, and they have a higher production rate, they have a warrior lifestyle. They probably don't have fasting periods because they have agricultural production. So they have building fortresses and chariots on an industrial scale, so that's why they deforestate. And probably for security reasons, forests would impede their view. Their extensive herds and probably regular burning, also for warfare, would destroy the vulnerable steppes, especially after climate destruction. Let's say after the climate would become more arid. That's a description of the situation that is common over all of Eurasia and later in the Mediterranean region. So the Sintashta and all other groups take part in climate destruction. That's something that I'm not sure if it exists, but this is much more than climate change. Not every detail matters, so I limit here, except that this type of behavior destroyed the forests, soils, climate and the world in a systematical way. And at some point it destroyed themselves. They saw themselves kind of as owners of the world, as left and right and the fittest of all. I made the description a little bit in a direction that I want to show they are pretty much what we modern humans did and still do. So what will happen with us? You can see what happened with them. They will show various cycles because this will happen over and over. So I go further. Modern humans are these Yamnaya. Sintashta are a later specialized group of the Yamnaya turnover that David Reich describes because he learned about it by ancient DNA. That is a very recent technique, only of this century, and let's say significant results were only obtained in 2017. So that's quite recent. So we modern humans are the descendants of these Yamnaya people that turned over, that are invaders, and we are the descendants. And as I described before, not that much changed. We still mine to make weapons and goods. Let's say it's less weapons, but it's much more goods. We have cars instead of chariots because we don't have the forests anymore. Cutting forests turned into mining coal because there was not enough rich forest to cut. And oil and gas was mined because the best spots of coal were became exhausted. It's also labor intensive and dangerous. And technologies allowed to more convenient petroleum and gas mining or exploration. The main principle, however, remained the same. In some way, we are still warlords, living from exploitation of the world or whatever, and of that life. Charcoal, oil and gas are dead life, just like cut forests are dead life. We still do nothing active for forests. Certainly no regeneration on large enough scale, taking into account that destruction was worldwide in colonial periods. For instance, the whole of the Americas. So this is important. We don't do regeneration, and the Amazon Amarants do, and by regenerating they create Amazon dark earth soils, and they suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Don't go into detail, but this has everything to do with the action plan. And from the past we learn how not to do it, and also, but we have to go further back in the Americas and further back in time. This is further back in the Americas and further back in time to find how it should be done to be sustainable and to stay in good health, especially heart and brain health. So very important, they would destroy their soils and climate. I think the word climate destruction is more correct. So collapses in that past were more obvious, so we can learn more from them. All collapses in the past are dominantly caused by climate destruction, as I described superficially. Back to the wheels, that megalith hunter Loa is looking for is produced, a more sophisticated version, by not only the Sintashta but Yamnaya and all their descendants in general. And we find that back in the Sumerians, in the Greeks, in the Romans. So there is no doubt that the ancient cultures of hybrids coming from the Americas, had the high and large wheels that Laura, megalith hunter Laura, was looking for to explain the construction and the use of the cartwheels, because the elite men were buried not only with their horses but with the wheels and chariots and their metal weapons. They have like kind of a chamber with all these elements. Even non-leaders seem to have been buried with their horse. They lead with a span of horses. So those people today are us, because they simply eliminated everything that was there. So what stayed was them, and consequently we are descendants of them, of those people that I just described. So horses and horsemen, or Yamnaya, come from North America. In a way, just like the horses, they are mass harvested. I won't explain this right now. This is autosome mutations, kind of haplogroups, but they don't call it haplogroups. In the case of autosomes is the largest part of our DNA, of our genome. And the B003 is the Botai, and the Botai come before the Syntashta and before the Yamnaya, which is a larger group. Syntashta is a specialized group of Yamnaya, but all are descendants of the Botai. The Botai is this in green, so it's a later archaic group. B006 is the earliest. This is our ancestor, which I claim is the Amazon amaranth, and I will not only claim that, I will prove that based on the most important migration and ancestral markers. So one of the earliest is the Neanderthal and Denisovan, which comes from the Americas. You can see it here. And for instance, the B004 is later, because this is in time, and it comes from the Americas, but is also quite present, or almost equally present, in Indonesia and Polynesia, also in Africa, because we have to remember that the distance between Africa and the Americas are, for origin, the Amazon amaranths, is much closer to Africa, and there's a current, there's a gyre to go there, and it's the South Atlantic gyre. If you throw a bottle in most of the east coast of Brazil and South America, your bottle will arrive in Africa. So in the case of the Botai, green here, you see that they come from Africa, from the Americas, but they develop more in Europe. If we would work with consensus, this impossibly can be explained how the Botai from the almost central Eurasia can arrive in Americas. That's only because there is migration between, and the migration is not from Europe to the Americas but from the Americas to Europe. Uh, so where I'm trying to get that is that wild horses and humans are kind of mass harvesting in mainly North America. And regarding horses, there's a millennia long tradition of mass harvesting of wild horses that then are domesticated. This is an article that with ancient DNA as well, and that proves that our horses come from the Americas just like the humans come. They are both hybrids, they are both domesticated. This autosome, these are domestications, these are pieces of the genome. Let's say this is the Neanderthal here in the Americas where he starts. That are more domesticated or hybridized. And the same thing happens with horses. So it must be very strange to quite a lot of people. So the video is getting a bit longer, and I will come. All this article is about that our domesticated horses do not come from Eurasia, but come as wild horses from North America or the Americas. The predecessor of horses in general lived in the Amazon forest. It was a small animal that was also domesticated by Amazon Amarants. Most probably all kind of horses, the smaller horses and the horses that they rode, were taken away from them when Spanish and Portuguese, or even before, raided. We call it raiding, but the raiding started long before, raided the Americas. So for now I will end this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.